Hello, my friends, fellow Americans. I'm Rick, little Missy laying back here on the cushion behind us. And over the past 3 or 4 years, I've been becoming more and more. I don't say more and more. I've watched a number of videos and this red pill concept. And at the end of the day, men are fed this load of bullshit. We're also indoctrinated and taught as kids this line of bullshit. That the nuclear family is everything, and to be a complete human being, you need to have a partner, preferably a partner of the other sex, of the opposite sex, and that you're supposed to have a long-lasting relationship that ideally leads to children and grandchildren and so on and so forth. Hence the nuclear family. And along the way, things have changed considerably in the last two generations of people. But definitely, if you go back the last 25 years, 30 years, if you actually go back to the 80s, things have begun to really radically change. From the 50s, and this is when we talk about people today and they're going on about, well, things used to be better. Well, yeah, a lot of things were better, but a lot of things were worse. And just in ways we don't recognize them then as being worse, but we do recognize it as being worse now, even though we have a tendency not to be able to correlate that with the stuff that was going on in the past. Y'all caught up with that? Good. Because that's kind of how this stuff all plays down. And so as kids, as young men, as young people, this goes with you young ladies too, young ladies period, women at all ages and colors. Y'all entitled bitches. Now, are you all that way? No. Is it bullshit for me to make that carte blanche statement? Well, sure it is. But, yeah. So we're taught that the young gentleman should be the one who asks the person out, should be the one who pays for everything, should be the one who's, basically everything. And so it's the same with the nuclear dream. If you go back to this mythical paradise that was the 1950s, because you asked a whole lot of folks that were living during the 1950s that's still alive how wonderful they were for them, and you're gonna find it wasn't so damn great, especially if you weren't white, middle class, or rich. That's the America they want you to go back to. They want you all to go back to the frickin' positions you were 60 years ago, 80 years ago. So, are you willingly going to do that? And why would you? Why should you? So like I said, as young men, especially us older gentlemen, we were taught to be the gentleman is the key. Is our responsibility to go out and get a job, to have a career, regardless of what that career is. Whether or not that career is going to cripple you and leave you dead. That's something that cropped up in a previous video, or maybe another in a different video. Whether I posted it prior to this or not, I don't know. But let's take a look at this guy, right? Let's bring this feller back up for a while. This guy here is an example of how things used to be, circa 1950s and before. Go back to the late 30s, any time prior to the Social Security, you would be an old person working your life away. You would literally work yourself to death because that's what they want you to do. That's what corporate America wants us to do now. They want us to work nonstop, all the time, every day, and be desperate enough to want to work a second job or maybe a third job, and to be desperate enough to be utterly terrified of losing whatever jobs we have. Because that's the way it was for a long time. So much for freedom in America. So much for freedom. How free are you? Really? How free are you? You're free to change jobs. Are you free to go without a job? Sort of. But there's consequences to it too, isn't there? And there ought to be some consequences. I grant you, we do not need an entire society of people who are basically sitting there and being spoon-fed, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to feel? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So as a young man, it's told to us that it's our job to woo the woman, to pay for everything. Upon successful wooing, to buy a house, or pay for the rent of the place we're going to live in, pay for all the expenses, including her expenses, while she stays home and takes care of your kids. and you're going to pay for all those too. So you're going to go out of the house 8-10 hours a day, maybe 12 to 15 hours a day, depending on your career, 5 to 7 days a week, depending on your career, until you die. Or until you reach a significant age where you've managed to put enough money away that you can retire. And what is, quote, retirement? That exactly what it means, that you're in a position to no longer have to work to survive. Unfortunately, in America that we know it today, corporate America has gone a long way to killing that. The pensions don't exist like they used to. It's very few industries now that have significant pensions worth even having. Most of them, sold us on this 401k bullshit. And what turns out, the 401ks were great for the wealthy people because it got the wealthy people allowed the wealthy people to use all of us poor fucks money to do whatever they want to do with it. And of course, the stock market's highly tied. 401ks are highly tied into the stock market. So when the poor do poorly, we all do poorly. When the wealthy do well, we all do poorly. Because that's by design. They want it this way, on purpose. So we're fed this bullshit line that you're supposed to be the one who bred the breadwinner. You're supposed to work your ass off. You're supposed to do it all. And then there's this exchange. Now, what's the most common exchange for most men? Although we're going to be honest here because most men are not going to be honest to you in this light. But the truth of it is, it's sex. That's what it was all about then. It's companionship as you get older, yes, but it was all about the sex in the earliest days. The younger you were, the more likely that was to be a driving factor, that wish to not so much procreate, but just go through the motions. Because that's what we're all, between the media and society, we're all just geared to this. This is how our worlds operate. Meanwhile, the young ladies are fed this similar line of thought, the similar dogma, with a different couple caveats on it. One is, be aware that sex is a tool. You can use sex to get what you want. You can use it to manipulate men quite easily. And a lot of women have quite adapted doing that. Is that right or wrong? It's not for me to say if it's right or wrong. That's an individual basis, an individual person's situation. But it's the facts. That's the real facts of the way the world works. Doesn't make it. It is what it is. So we're told to do all this, and they're told to accept all this. And then this changed. This changes in the 80s, especially in the 80s. The women's movement had a movement. They didn't even realize it. They were gaining more and more freedom. From what? No, they were actually being manipulated and forced. Think about that for a minute. Prior to the fucking 80s, lion's share of Americans, the top 65%, let's just say, the top 65%, and most middle-class Americans the husband made a significant income, enough money to pay for all the expenses, the home, the car, the utilities, everything, and even have extra money for things like vacations and holidays and shit like this. While the wife stayed home and kept house. She managed the family company, if you want to make from it that perspective. She made sure everything went well, everything operated smoothly, that everything was taken care of, and that was a partnership between the two. So when this starts to merge, realities of the world start to incur, costs keep going up, expenses keep going up, everything keeps going up except wages. So at some point something has to give. So we slowly emasculate the men over the last 30, 40 years, making us less manly based on the preconceptions we were born with or taught as children as to where our role and places were in society. And so many of us fall into this. And we become utterly convinced that our lives will be worthless if we don't have a partner in them. So this red pill concept is to break away from this. Until you're legally married, every date should be Dutch. Because how many dates have you gone on where the lady paid for you, and you didn't feel like you were a scum? or a loser somehow. Because in the past, it was always, well, if the lady's picking up the tabs because you can't afford to do it. Oh, you're poor and she's got money. Or you're a male gold digger. You're a gigolo and you're just trying to get a free ride and that's what you want this bitch to pay. Or she's desperate to have you as a companion. All those were viable things and still are. But that was the process. So the women were encouraged to, I don't know, find a man, find a provider who will provide for everything, manipulate that man to get whatever they want, how they want it, because sometimes that was the only way, I'm just being honest, that was the only way women of the 1950s and earlier, in many ways, could get anything done. That they needed or wanted was to use their wiles or their aggression. And honey always catches more flies. That's a cold fact of reality, too. You don't have to like the facts, that doesn't change the facts. You can ignore them, too, it still doesn't change the facts. Realities are. So we come into this new generation. And a lot of this goes hand in hand with this loneliness and this problem with men today. Men are having problems in society, and as men, many of us are struggling to understand our place in the world and place in society. I'm 57, and no matter how hard I work, no matter what I try to do, I cannot seem to catch a break. Yeah, I'm far better off than I was 6 years ago, without a doubt. But there's no more improvement. I can't get better than what I've got, and I'm painfully aware that I'm seriously lacking in a lot of places. And I'll give you a grand example. Like I said before, I've got about 9 years before I turn 67 and will be able to get my full retirement for full Social Security, assuming y'all don't fucking take it from me. And so at 67, and I'll be able to get Medicare, so some of my expenses will change. The worst part is I will radically alter our income for our home. Now I'm used to bringing about $3,000 a month home. between 24 and $3,000 taking it home, and that's because I work a lot of overtime. Well, you go from that to $1,000 a month. How do you support that? Well, right now I got about $400 a month in credit card expenses. And I've got 2 credit cards that are damn near maxed out. No matter how hard I try, it just seems like every time I get them paid down a little bit, something big comes along and takes it. So we've been running credit card bills for 3 years now since the fucking COVID shit fucked everything up. And at what point do I cut it and run? Because we can do that. That's something they don't want you to know. But you know what? If you get under enough credit card debt, you can just tell your credit card companies to go fuck themselves. And there ain't really a whole lot they can do about it. They can't take your house from you. They can't do this, they can't do that. I guess I shouldn't say it. It depends on how many tens of thousands you owe them. I mean, I got about $15,000, roughly, right? And what do they do? Every couple of years, they give me more. They extend the credit rate. They enhance their credit ratings, knowing full well that we're desperate and we can't say no. And so we keep making these premium payments every month until we die, or we say enough's enough and say fuck off. And of course, there's ramifications. There's penalties for that, starting with, you screw your credit up to something fierce. But I'm going to be honest, I get to a point where I'm working, I'm no longer working in America, and I can't be this old goat here and function. I'm just being honest. That sudden 2/3 of my income disappears. Well, a whole lot of shit has to change. A big chunk of it's going to be, these bills. I ain't going to pay them. When we get to an age where I don't fucking care, go fuck yourself. Take it out of my estate when I'm dead. At that point, I won't give a shit. I also live in Iowa, so we have a 10-year grace window. So in 10 years, if I stop paying everything, all my credit cards today, 10 years from now, my credit would be okay for me to start getting credit cards again. How I know this? Because I've been here before. This isn't the first time this has happened. And guess what? They didn't get their fucking money the last time. They cried and bitched and threatened and whined for years. At the end of the day, they didn't get a damn dime out of me. I'm not proud of it. And there's some circumstances behind it too, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. So we're told as young gentlemen to do this, this, and this, and then society slaps us in the face for this, that, and the other thing. Young ladies are told to do this, this, and this, or to expect this. And we're getting into some new generations. A lot of things have changed. Starting with my generation was teaching our children better differently. Part of that's got to do with circumstances. Once again, like I said, my generation, coming up out of the 80s into the 90s, discovered that it took two members of your family bringing an income in to be able to make ends meet. That's just the cold reality of the world, you know, and the reality that they've created for us, for you. And so that was our big drive. And this social thing, you know, your social circumstances change. Ideally, when you marry, you start hanging out with other married couples because, you know, the single friends become a problem, or they just you become boring to them. I mean, I know I changed radically from what I was in my 20s. I don't do the bar scene anymore. Couldn't afford it now if I wanted to, and it's just I'm too tired for it. It's a waste. My time is no longer that driven. I don't want to waste my time at a bar somewhere for whatever reason. And after 30 years of marriage, why the fuck would I? I mean, occasionally the wife and I go out, you know, but that's rare. Maybe once or twice a year because we just don't have the money anymore to do that. You know, I was struggling. We had a tire go bad on us 3 weeks ago in a snowstorm, and I had to borrow $130 from my employer to buy a goddamn tire. My wife went to the food pantry on Thursday. We do what we got to do, right? Meanwhile, the open marketplace, this goddamn insurance that they got me on, cost me $2,000 on $1,900 in federal taxes. They owe the feds $1,900 this year. How the fuck am I gonna pay that off? I had owed them like $500 2 years ago, and I got it paid off like 3 months ago. I'm just saying. So I'm gonna get about $800 from state, and guess where most of that's going? Toward the feds. And then I'll spend the rest of the year every penny I can throwing it at it, because I can't afford $240 a month payments for health care. So I got to do it this way. Kind of fucked if I do and fucked if I don't. You know, because why do I get penalized? Well, my wife's on disability. She worked for 20 fucking years and then couldn't work anymore. She's entitled to that. Had this been 1930, circa 1930s and earlier, she'd still be working. She'd had to find an even shittier job than she had, one that would tolerate her seizures and her passing out on the job occasionally, and because we would have no choice. We absolutely could not get by with just my income alone in our current circumstances. And we don't live lavishly. We live a pretty damn meager life. You know, I'm just being the truth. That's like a lot of you out there. It's paycheck to paycheck. Even if you got a big fat paycheck every week, your style of living is costing you to be stressed. I joke about that. A guy I know bought himself a new truck. His truck payment costs more than my house. My monthly mortgage is cheaper than his damn truck payment, and his truck payment's only good for 5 years. So he's going to buy a $50,000 truck in 5 years. Big chunk of his income every month goes to that. And guess what? He ain't got a lot else. But he's got that big old fancy expensive truck. So, that said, right? I can't blame a lot of men from disconnecting from this fallacy that's been forced upon us, or been fire hosed at us, or for generations, that this is how this is supposed to work. But there's also some negatives to this too, my friends. You're all out there who are embracing the red pill. Let's be honest. We all know and have found and have met plenty of people on either sex, doesn't matter, who are driven for money and about money, and they want you, he has to be cute, and he has to be 6 foot tall, and he has to make $1 million a year. Really? I recently heard something somebody said that, far too many people are running around looking for, that prince among all the frogs, and miserable for doing so. When at the end of the day, what they need to do, and most likely will end up doing anyway, is being frogs with somebody else. So you want to be lonely. You want to die alone. You want to walk that path when you're 70 years old and you have no family and no friends, because that's part of our society problems today too. This dearth of friendship, this dearth of social movement. There's this, everybody's connected, but everybody but you know, for in a time of humanity's existence, with so many people have access to the internet, and so many literally connected, literally daily, with things they would never have been present or seen or witnessed or enjoyed or hated in their, you know, before any of this stuff. We've cut ourselves off from the interactions of the real world. There was a point of having to go hunt down a payphone and carry phone numbers with you, or at least memorize them. It's just hitting a button, and you know, you would let people know, and we'd have to go call them on the phone and say, hey, we want to do something this weekend. What do you got planned? Make efforts. We would be connected better. Now you go out in public, and what do you see? Everybody's on their phone or in their car driving down the road doing this, and they're connecting, but disconnected to the immediate surroundings around them, sometimes to their detriment. Like I said, I drive a lot all day long as part of my job, and I see some people do some really stupid shit, and it involves them cell phones. Oh my God, you people are you just want somebody to die, and you just hope it won't be you, but you don't care if you kill somebody else because you're distracting yourself while you're hurtling down the interstate at 70 miles an hour. Really? Let's put a laptop in the car and hook up the internet so we can sit there. I'm guilty too, because I listen to YouTube videos and crap all the time while I'm at work. The difference though is I set my phone down here where I can't see the fucking thing. I'm listening to it through the radio speakers on the truck cab. I'm not actually viewing the damn thing. But that's neither here nor there. It is what it is. I fully understand the Red Pill movement. I fully understand what a lot of people are saying when it comes to, why should I sacrifice everything in my life to be miserable most of my life? Because at the end of the day, relationships are work. Just as much as anything else, you have to put effort into it. You can't just, you know, a lot of people fall into that trap of, well, I've got the prize, now I don't have to do anything. Hell no. It's like anything you buy that's worth having. You want to buy a classic car, it's going to keep time, money, effort, and attention to keep it a classic car worth having. Wrong? Am I wrong? So it's the same thing with a relationship. On the other side of the point, so many of us are geared towards things that we were improperly taught, or perhaps wrongfully taught, about how the world should work, and how our parents and our elders felt it should based on their experiences, and it's causing us no end of grief now. And probably will for another generation or two, a couple generations. I suspect this will get worse before it gets better, and I don't know how it gets improved. You know, we got this mindset that we have to go do this. So, like I said, I met my ex-wife at 16, and we dated through high school, and we had a rocky relationship all through those 2 years, which was to be expected. And when we got divorced, we got married for the wrong damn reasons. We graduated high school in 1985, and her mom threw her out of her house. See, her mom was with the traditional meme as a welfare mother was my ex-wife's mother. This woman had 5 daughters. Every daughter had a different dad. Every daughter was so far apart age-wise that their mom, when she was eligible to get Social Security, her youngest daughter turned 18 almost to a month that she was eligible to get Social Security. I think it was like 3 or 4 month window there. And so all of her kids were spaced out on purpose. She would go out to the bars and pick up train wrecks, these old broken down geezers, and bring them home, and then rip them for everything she could get. Her and their kids, because I watched my ex's sisters and shit pull scams on some of these fuckers too. And some pretty shady ways that would put these guys in prison just because the girls were underage and playing the game. They understood how to get things, and they were smart. And so her mom lived on had what they call that, Title 19 for housing and shit. So her housing was dirt cheap, and yet they lived on an acreage that Title 19 paid for, and had horses, because my ex-wife's younger sister, second to the youngest sister, was a horse nut and horse sheep. She was a princess, and she absolutely had to have her horse. And so they had horses. And this is people on welfare. Because her mom never worked a damn day in her life that I ever heard of. She was actually kind of proud of it too. She made a big deal about it. But she was also, you know, have you ever seen Pee Wee's Big Adventure and he gets in the truck with Large Marge? That lady is a spitting image of my ex-wife's mother. Cackle and everything. Oh, yeah, right? So there's an extreme side of this. It's all about the money. It's like the first night I met my ex. We were both 16. I went over to her house we'd already, it was a prearranged, we were going to go out to a movie kind of thing because my cousin had set it up. So I went over to pick her up, and she's in a brawl, a literal brawl with one of her older sisters. Threw her sister through the window of the house. Through the front window, big picture window, knocked her right through it. Come running out of the house, jumped in my pickup, and said, I don't care where we go, what we do, but I'm not coming home tonight. And you use your imagination as to what kind of a pair of 16-year-olds did for that evening, because that was my whole goal in the first place, and she just wanted to use me to get out of her, get away from her situation for a minute. And this became the theme for a couple of years. So I don't know why I thought it would be different if we got married. So when she got married, her mom said, you either get a job, get married, get a husband, get a man, pay for shit, or get the fuck out. Because nobody lived in her house that didn't bring money in. And that including her children. So the minute her children were, there was one exception. The oldest daughter was would she be autistic by today's standards? Very, very homely gal and very heavy set. Took after mom a lot. She stayed at home in part because she got some disability money every month, but mostly because she did all the work in the house. She was the grudge. She was the drudge that did all the housework and all the laundry and did most of the cooking and all this crap. So nobody else had to or wanted to, right? So that's what Mama kept her around, for somebody to basically do her shit, do all of her work for her. And so when her mom said, get the fuck out, she turned 18, out the door she went, and I didn't want her shacking up someplace else because she didn't have nowhere to go. And so I had her come to my parents' house. And my mother said, there ain't no way in hell you're shacking up in my house. Now, I was living in the basement of my parents' house. I had moved recently. I'd moved out and then moved back in. I'd moved out very briefly with a couple of guys in an apartment that didn't end well. And about 4 or 5 months later, moved back home. And about this time is when it was plainly evident my ex was never going to get a job that was worth having. So her mom said, get the fuck out of the house. And she made her go. And at that point, she was, literally in the street and crying. And I was like, well, I can't have her go here, so I took her home. And mom took pity on her. And so she was up in my old bedroom. I was in the basement. And of course, you know how fast the things moved. It wasn't, mom wasn't having it. But I said, fine, we'll get married. Yeah, right. So my mom was like, all right. So we went down and applied. I went down the next day, applied for a marriage license. It took about 2 weeks for it to show up in the mail. And then my grandmother, who was a registered minister, came out to my folks' house and married my ex and I in front of witnesses 5 months after our graduation in high school at 18. And then it proceeded to take me 2 goddamn years to get rid of her. Because we had an apartment, she cheated on me, I caught her with other people, she ran out, she kept running home to mom, she'd run back, she'd run home, she'd run back, she kept using me, all she ever wanted was money, and she used sex to get whatever she wanted. She knew how to play me. And it took me a while to wake up to that. And then, even after I woke up to it, I finally had enough and said, we're done for good. And then, like I said, it took about $2,000 and about 2 years to pay for it, to get the lawyer to pay for the damn divorce. We were still in and out of this, that we weren't having a relationship, we were still having a relationship. And that's when she got pregnant with my oldest son. And of course, during the divorce decree, it says there's no children. And she sat there in front of it, swore in front of a judge that there are no children, which was a lie because she was pregnant. And just not quite showing just yet. And, the rest is the rest, is what it is. So when I listen to other people and I look at situations, these people getting into relationships for all the wrong reasons. And the other side is their expectations are grossly out of whack. A lot of times the women's expectations are way out of line for what the realities of the world is, and whoever gave them those expectations are not dissuading them of them, or not doing them any favors. Plenty of women die alone of old age too in America. I'm just saying. So yeah, you can take the red pill. You can divorce yourself from the relationship game and the bullshit that goes along with all that. And you can be alone and you can be independent. Or you can have friends with benefits, but that only lasts for a while and it doesn't last forever. And guess what? Relationships occur. So whether you'll find one you didn't expect to happen, or the people you thought were going to be your friends with benefits forever find relationships of their own and cut you off. It'll happen. It's the same with the money shit. You know, it doesn't make it right, doesn't make it better. But is this the right way to handle things? Who's the hell's to know? Every individual has the right to make those decisions. You know, is it time for society to change shit? I think that's what we're in the process of, which is a messy thing. Change is a terribly messy process, and it never usually ends well anyway. So where we'll go from there, from here, I don't know. Considering how fucked up our society is right now, in our political situation and in the world situation we're in the middle of or getting deeper into, this crap might be the least of our problems for a while, but it's still a problem. Part of our problem, and we see this in other countries. Japan's I use Japan as a sounding board for a lot of crap. It's a great example of this. 25 years ago, they started seeing a decrease in their population growth. And a large portion of the problem is there's this problem between the men and women. They can't connect. The young men and women of Japan just can't connect with each other. They're just not making the connections anymore. They're not sustaining them. Or the young people are literally cutting themselves off from just about everything that's not their own little fantasies. That's where we're heading now. All you got to do is look to places like Japan to understand where we are going to go next at the rate we are. The only thing that saves America from that utter, is the influx of immigrants, new people, new blood coming in over the borders. Imagine that. That's something Japan does not encourage. Japan is very reluctant to invite a whole slew of non-Japanese foreigners to their shores for forever. It's hard to get a long-term visa, and let alone a permanent residency in Japan. Not impossible, just difficult, and not quite common. Not as common as it is obviously in the West. And coming here, and 5,000-6,000 people a day. They say 3 million people over the last couple of years. Yeah. Once again, I point to the video I did on who's shouting the loudest. A lot of these people down south didn't know that they could do this until certain elements of our, of the political right started screaming, ranting, and raving at the sun for hours on end on every media source they could find, which a lot of it gets translated and shown in South America. The open border that's not really open. Everybody gets to come in for free, which isn't the truth. Because God forbid we actually use truth and honesty in anything we do today. Truth and honesty in anything we fucking do today. Nothing. And you expect that in relationships too? We're in that problem with our relationships. This red pill example is, look, ladies, no offense, and there's a lot of you good women out there who understand this isn't the way we're supposed to do things. Unfortunately, you damn well as I do, you know those ladies, you know those women, you know them, you're friends with them. Some of them are you. Some of them are your relatives, some people you work with, but you know these. These are people who use other people, men specifically. And they have goals that are unrealistic at best. And in the process, punish everybody who might be a good match otherwise for that. Or they put expectations on the people they do meet that can't be lived up to, and of course they fail. And when you're always looking for the next better opportunity to come along, you're never going to have a good relationship at all. I mean, it's just the risk of it, of somebody coming along, and why bother? Why invest in that? And then there's the monetary side of things. Literally, men get bled dry by women on a regular basis in this country, and have been forever. But this is all can be said worldwide. This is a man-woman problem. But in our society, in current situation, everybody works, everybody pulls their weight, everybody contributes equally as possible. And if you're one of these people, these young ladies who think somehow you're going to find somebody that's got a nice fat paycheck so you can just sit around all day and fuck off and hang out with your friends and do everything you want, occasionally give your man a blowjob or spread your legs for him for payment, you're the problem. You're the problem that's causing all the, you're the main primary problem that caused all this other shit. You're the example of why so many young men today are cutting that off. They're not having it no more. Now, that said, there's a lot of young ladies today that follow that path too. They're becoming more independent. This leads us to a lot of the uber feminist movements that really seem to be anti-male. Good Lord, there at no time in human history that I'm aware of has the men been more beat up by women than now. You're making up for generations of inability to beat up the men, and men get tired of it. We get tired of getting utilized and used and cheated on and marginalized and ignored and patronized and a whole lot of other ISIS. So you can't blame people when they start to disconnect. The question is how far will it go? Because in Japan, they're in a crisis. That's a problem for them, a massive problem, because their population growth is just not keeping up with the Joneses. Population has to grow at a certain percentage every year to make the economy viable, let alone everything else. That's the real facts of our realities of our societies and our economies today too. The opposite side of that in our case right now is that we're getting way too many people come, literally pouring across the borders in this country because our system is so overwhelmed. Our system for asylum. The lion's share of these people coming over are seeking asylum, and they're seeking asylum because a whole lot of Republicans ran their mouths and cried and bitched, still doing it for the last 5 years, to the point where every corner of the world's heard it in spades. Americans open, and if you can claim any kind of assignment, they'll let you in. Well, we don't have the resources and the manpower to vet everybody like we need to. So to give them the time to go through that process, they did this catch and release thing. Okay, fine. Here's a temporary visa, and then we're going to run you through the thing. And if you fail it, you're going to go. Well, therein started the crisis at the border in reality. And the reality is Biden has absolutely no goddamn control over that at all. He's going by the politics of the laws that were created by people that preceded him. And the problem is these border laws and our immigration laws and stuff were created when? When was the last time they were seriously updated? Last I heard, it's been 50 or 60 years since there was even a serious renovation of these laws. So this is the real problem. So when you get a politically driven Congress, specifically the MAGA party, that absolutely refuses, they cry and scream and moan and beat their chest over this great problem at the border, and then when both sides get together and present them with the most elaborate, the most draconian, conservative border deal in history, they turn their back on it and start screaming that it's all bullshit. And we can't do that. We can't do this. No, they don't want to do it because it's not what Trump wants. So it's all a farce. It's all a bunch of fake shit. That's the problem, though, is how do you tell the fake from the real? And this is reality, and in our relationships today is horrible. It's horrible. There's so many superficial people now, and it's worse because of social media. Social media makes it 10 times worse. In part because humanity has never had at its fingertips more resources for finding mates than we ever did in the past. The dating sites is just it's just staggering how many and how big they are. And yet what? Lots of miserable people and lots of lonely people. In a country with suffering of male loneliness and males in crisis and women having issues and yet here we are with societal issues too and relationship problems and men wanting to disconnect from the whole damn fucking game and the scam. I don't blame them for doing it. But just be aware, man, that comes with some serious costs to you and your mental capacity in the long term. There's some realities of it. Is it great? Is it perfect? Hell no. Is marriage perfect? Fuck no. There are times, there are days We all have them. We do. But there are days when I don't want to be by myself either. I don't want to be by myself. And now I'm at an age now where I worry because I am a male and I am 4 years older than my wife, and I work a hell of a lot more than she does. And not because she doesn't want to, but because it's just the way it works. And I do some. My job is hard, and it physically takes its demands, its tolls on me. And the older you get, the worse that gets. So we wear ourselves out. We're back to being this old timey goat sitting down here, whose whole life is spent trying to do the right thing and to survive and to live and work until he's dead. Yeah, great life that is. Unless you rich people don't get to do that crap because you don't want to do that crap. You want us to do that crap. You want us to die in slave away in your factories and in your office complexes and make your worlds the uber perfect perfection of the American dream that the rest of us are denied on purpose. So, the red pill a good thing or a bad thing? Yes, exactly right. It just irritates me to know.